A hush fell over the courtyard of the monastery as the great master lay upon his simple reed mat, breath growing shallow beneath the pale morning light. Monks gathered in a wide semicircle, the air heavy with anticipation. When the master first spoke, his voice was a faint whisper, yet carried the weight of lifetimes. Never allow a cat in your life. With those final syllables, he closed his eyes, offering the young monk at his side a silent benediction. Before slipping into stillness, confusion rippled through the assembly. A cat? Such an odd injunction to leave as one's last teaching. The newly appointed successor bowed his head, mind swirling with questions. Why forbid a harmless creature? He watched as the funeral pyre consumed the master's earthly remains. Yet his words burned brighter than any flame in the monks' hearts. When the ceremony concluded, the young monk found himself restless, replaying those final cryptic words. Outside, the morning mist clung to the bamboo groves, and footsteps approached. It was the elder monk, frail and bent with age, who had served alongside the master for decades. He paused by the disciple's side, eyes brimming with compassion. "You seem troubled, my son," he murmured. "You carry the burden of the master's last command." The young monk confessed his bewilderment. Gently, the old monk offered to unveil the hidden tale behind those simple words. A tale that began when the master himself first donned the robe of renunciation. Decades earlier, the master, then still bound by the ties of marriage, children, and home, felt an irresistible call to seek deeper truths. One dawn he left behind his family's hearth, journeying into the heart of the forest until he found a clearing near a modest village. Villagers, awed by his silent grace, built him a cottage of bamboo shoots and thatch. He accepted only 2 robes and a begging bowl, content in his vow of simplicity. Each day he ventured into the village to ask alms, and in return he offered blessings and gentle smiles. His life seemed to flow in perfect harmony until one damp night when the scuttling of rats shattered the quiet. By dawn's glow, he discovered jagged holes chewed through his precious robes, the only garments he possessed. Panic gripped him. Without clean clothes, his vow of purity would unravel. He returned to the villagers with downcast eyes. They whispered among themselves until a kindly elder suggested, "Why not keep a cat? It would chase the rodents away." The monk agreed, and soon a sleek feline prowled by his side, its lithe form recompense for his ruined robes. For a time, peace returned. The cottage remained untouched by the rats, but whispering purrs hunger for more than scraps of goodwill. Every morning, the monk carried a bowl and begged once again, this time for fresh milk to nourish his companion. The villagers watched his daily return with growing concern. Though they admired his resolve, a monk dependent on milk seemed incongruous. When he voiced his dilemma, they proposed another remedy. "We shall gift you a cow. It will give us fresh milk each dawn, and you need no longer ask for anything more." Gratitude filled the monk as a gentle cow was led to his door. Yet the cow, in its own gentle way, demanded care and sustenance. The monk realized that he must provide grass for his new charge. Each day, he found himself venturing farther into the village fields, begging not for food or robes, but for bundles of fodder. Murmurs began to rise among the villagers. A monk who once held nothing now solicited grass as ardently as any farmer. Conflicted, he returned to his generous neighbors, seeking a path to uphold his vow without burdening them. The villagers gathered once more and pointed to a widow who lived at the edge of the settlement. Her husband had died in battle, leaving her alone and destitute. They urged her to care for the monk's cow, assuring her that he, in return, would aid her with crops and labor. Grateful for purpose, she moved into the clearing beside the monk's cottage, her slender hands tending fields of barley and millet, caring for the cow and the cat. The monk, humbled by her devotion, labored beside her, planting and weeding beneath the sun's indifferent glare. In the rhythm of daily toil, something unexpected took root. Shared smiles at sunset grew into laughter, and laughter bloomed into companionship. The monk, whose heart once beat only for the Dharma, discovered a tenderness he had thought left behind in the world he renounced. Late autumn brought ripening grain, and the woman's slender frame swelled with new life, the promise of a child sealing a bond the monk could never have foreseen. He watched her cradle her belly beneath the crescent moon and felt himself torn between two lives. One dawn, the woman placed her hand upon his arm, her eyes bright with tears, and said, "I believed I served you out of compassion and duty, but my heart has woven itself around yours." The monk's breath caught. He knelt beside her in the soft frost of morning, and in that cold light he saw clearly the path he had strayed. The vows he once held inviolable had been eroded, grain by grain, by kindness and necessity, by the cat that chased the rats, the cow that needed grass, the widow whose love he could not deny. Returning to the monastery, the old monk paused beneath the blossoming cherry tree, its petals drifting like soft rain. He laid a withered hand on the young successor's shoulder and said softly, "This is why our master warned against letting even a single cat into your life. For a small necessity, we grant our mind the freedom to wander, and before we know it, that freedom turns into chains." The young monk closed his eyes, picturing the once steadfast master ensnared in a web of affection and obligation, his heart pulled from silence into the noisy currents of desire. In the hush that followed, the lesson took root. The mind thrives on justification. A single indulgence seems harmless, one taste, one glance, one agreement, until it multiplies beyond measure. A habit born for a moment of relief can grow into a force that bends the very will we once held unbreakable. What begins as a small concession becomes a burdensome reality, and we awaken only when the chains have bruised us beyond recognition. Consider the narcotic of distraction, that first scroll through fleeting images meant to fill a moment's silence, which stretches into hours of emptiness. Think of the tiny rebellion in reaching for a packet of sweets, the confession of just one more, until the body and mind demand countless repeats. Each act is a silent invitation for the mind to claim ground until we stand unrecognizable to ourselves. On that courtyard floor, the young monk bowed his head and felt the weight of responsibility settle deep within his bones. The old monk withdrew, leaving him to absorb the echo of timeless wisdom. No grand pronouncements followed, only a silent promise to guard the gateway of his mind as vigilantly as a warrior stands watch at midnight. And so the tale of the cat endured, not as a fable of animals and tents, but as a mirror to the battles waged within each soul. May we remember that every small concession is a seed sown in the garden of the mind. Some blossoms bring beauty, but others bear thorns. Let us choose our tending with care, mindful that the simplest choices shape the destiny of our spirit.